Hey there! You're listening to Those Real Estate Brothers podcast, where Joseph and Jared share what they know in real estate and all things local, including local restaurants, businesses, and cool stuff. Which brother is more interesting? Well, you're about to find out.
We're going to ask you, Chuck, at the end, who's more interesting?
Well, you already know us, so you can answer that right now.
Yeah, there you go.
Who's the more interesting brother?
That's a tough one.
Spoken like a realtor. Let me see what you think first, and then I'll answer.
What about after I have 3 martinis?
Yeah, definitely.
So what's up, Chuck? Welcome on.
Thank you.
Chuck Ferrara, realtor here in our office, Weigert Realtors Performance Homes in Farmingdale. You've been with us now, I guess we're close to 2 years?
Yeah, about a month it'll be 2 years.
Yeah, very nice. So, Jared, what are we going to talk about today?
I don't know. We're gonna figure out what to talk about. Chuck was talking about how you had a bottle of wine, and he said a small bottle. And I said, "What's a small bottle of wine?" And he said, "Well, it's not one of the magnums, one of the big ones."
It's the only time Americans know the metric system when it comes to wine bottles, right? Well, it's 3/4 something milliliters or something.
What is a bottle? 3.75 milliliters?
No, that's
750.
750, 0.75 milliliters.
Oh, the little one, yeah.
And then the Magnum, the Chuck's regular size,
1.5.
1.5 liters.
It makes a big difference. A bottle of the little ones and a magnum.
It does.
Because especially you get to say, I only had one bottle of wine, officer.
Yes.
I was starting to say we make homemade wine, so at the end of the, every spring we're kind of scrounging for bottles. We like the Magnums, the 1.5s, because it's a lot less labor. Every time you move a bottle, it counts as 2. Half the corks, half the moving of bottles. So we don't like buying bottles. They're kind of expensive. It's so much cheaper to buy wine, drink the wine, and then save the bottles. The cheap wine, the Bollinger and Yellowtail. So there was this one
Yellowtail. Do they still sell Yellowtail?
They still sell Yellowtail. It turns out it's mostly purple pack, which is like a purple concentrate.
I don't think I had that since college.
Yeah.
And even then, I didn't drink it happily.
If you want a good headache, Yellowtail is a great way to get one.
Me and my college buddies, we used to have wine night. I think it was like a Wednesday, maybe, who knows, some during the week. But we would get a gallon of wine, each of us. And not that we drank it all, but we had a noble effort. Polish it a gallon.
You think of those Carlo Rossi, which I deal with those bottles all the time.
Dinner, yeah.
I think it's like 20, they're up to like $22 a gallon.
Yeah.
And you think about how much wine you could drink for $22. I mean, what's an average bottle of like a dinner red? You're talking $16, $17 probably just for a bottle.
Decent bottle, yeah.
What is it? 6 of those go into a gallon?
Yeah.
6 of those in a gallon?
It never works out quite perfect.
Is anyone-
now we're going back to Imperial, right? So we're back to, oh wait, the numbers are getting too high. I got to go back to standard. I can't be doing metric. The only time, I'm telling you, wine bottles and socket wrenches, the only time you deal with metric.
Yeah, I agree.
I like honey wine. I mean, you had mead before? We talked about this, right? That place in Lindenhurst, WA Mead Works.
Oh, yeah.
So anyone that is in the area and watches the podcast and wants to try honey wine, which is mead, which I believe is like the first alcohol ever made. Am I right in that assumption?
Who knows?
It was like Viking
Was
days.
anybody there to know?
I think it was like
The first alcohol was the guy who ate a rotted apple and got drunk
Yeah.
and said, that felt good. Wait, give me some more of those apples. That must have been the Adam and Eve apple.
yeah. But yeah, mead. It's delicious. It's made of honey wine. And this place in Lindenhurst, Joe owns it. WA Mead Works. They add berries to it and all this good stuff. It's delicious.
I gotta try it.
Should we do an office event at the meadery?
I would love that. Yeah.
Ditto.
Somebody I know should plan one.
All right.
All right, so the 3 of us will be there because no one else in the office is going to be interested in trying mead in Lindenhurst, but I am.
Lindenhurst is the place to be.
Yeah.
It's grown up. There's a lot of cool stuff down on Wellwood over there, right? They do a lot of good events on the street, but now you have, I love the Village Lantern. Probably my favorite place on Wellwood.
I was there last night, ironically, and we were not planning on talking about all Lindenhurst today. This was a little impromptu. But last night I passed it, and it was dark at 5 o'clock. And the lights there, the sign is awesome.
It's a cool setup. The inside is just as cool as the outside too. It's really well themed. It's a German restaurant. It just feels like you're in some old German restaurant. So as you are.
Yesterday was Taco Tuesday. So me and my wife, we went to Hermana's, which is right next to Sand City Brewery.
Another place I gotta try.
Their empanada is probably the best empanada I ever had.
Yeah.
And my in-laws have brought home empanadas from Argentina and other parts of South America. The best empanada I ever had. It was like the beef one, and they put a whole olive in it.
Yeah.
And they make a disclaimer on the menu, like, I guess, don't panic. There's gonna be a whole olive in it.
Is there a pit?
And I didn't get one.
It's a pitted whole olive. Because I think olive and chopped meat is a common empanada.
Yeah.
I've had that. Not as a whole olive, though. But if they had a pit in there, that drives me nuts. I go to this place, they get Greek salads, and they put the black olives with
Yeah.
pits. And I like to chop my salad, so you never know when it's going to be the tooth breaker.
Yeah, I've been there. And yeah, you have that oh boy moment.
Of all the laws in America, why isn't there a law you can't have pitted olives and olives with pits in salads? It's if I'm ever president, that's the first law.
Well, before we get into real estate, you mentioned the cookie place you went to yesterday.
Yeah, it's been around for a few years, I think, and I just heard of it yesterday. Chonkies,
Oh yeah, I've had it.
and they're amazing.
I think someone in Farmingdale was selling them for a little while for them
Yeah.
before they opened the store. There's like a big whole thing in the middle, right?
Yeah, I think one of their most popular ones is the Bada Bing. It's a chocolate chip cookie stuffed with one of those Italian striped cookies.
The rainbow cookies.
Rainbow cookie,
Yep.
yeah. Amazing.
And you have to. There's a rule when you buy those cookies. You have to break them open really slow while videoing it. If you remember the beginning of the pandemic, I think that's where how they became really popular.
Yeah.
There was another one, My Cookie Dealer, too, that had
Yeah.
something similar.
Yeah.
Had this giant cookie, and everybody was breaking them in half real
Yeah.
slow, and they just exploded online.
Yeah, I mean a small box of these, and I picked it up off the kitchen table. I mean, it's solid. It's got weight to it.
It'll add some weight, too, if you eat enough of them. What kind of cookies do you want? I like when there's a cookie inside. It's like a turducken for cookies.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember John Madden? Every time you think of Thanksgiving, I always think of John Madden, and he had the turkey bowl game or whatever they call it, Thanksgiving
Yeah.
Day football game, Cowboys a lot of the time. And he'd give out turkey legs to his favorite player of the game, but he would always talk about the turducken. Like every
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, you knew he was going to talk about a turducken, which I guess is a New Orleans kind of thing where you take a duck, stuff it in a chicken, and you stuff that inside a turkey,
Yeah.
deboned, and it's just this big pile of poultry.
Yep.
And I guess now we do that with cookies too, because why not?
I would never want to eat that.
Which one, the cookie or the turducken?
The turducken.
I mean, I would try it.
I would try it.
It's a goof.
But I don't think I could ever have a dinner party and, what are we presenting tonight for turducken?
I'm thinking about it, we got 3 foodies here. We all cook.
Yeah.
And I think we're all pretty good.
Chuck's a
at it.
better cook than me, I'm sure.
He's certainly a better poster of his cooking.
The good thing about a turducken, if you're having a dinner party, who doesn't like duck? Okay, we'll
Yeah.
be the outside. Who wants chicken? Wait, it's all cooked together. Yeah,
I
it's
guess-
great.
Yeah, that works.
So where's your go-to spot as far as food?
I'm all over the place, but I really like Amity-L's.
I was just telling Joseph their nachos are the most
Oh,
delicious
yeah.
nachos in the world.
With the gorgonzola and the honey drizzle.
Is that on there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's they're not nachos. They're homemade chips, potato chips.
Okay.
And it's if you look at it on the menu, it's not something I would ever try by the description, but somebody ordered it and they were the most amazing things ever.
I gotta check that out.
I don't know. We should have did the food at the end. We're close to my lunch. This is so. Market's different, right? We messed up. We put the sign behind the light on me today, but
Well, we gotta do an intro.
all right. Let's introduce Chuck.
Chuck, you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am fairly new to real estate, I guess you can say. I've only been licensed going on 2 years. I'm told that I got in at a weird time, and everything that happened last year is not the norm. I got used to having crazy busy open houses and properties selling in a weekend, and that's not how it usually is, and that's not how it will be moving forward. So, I mean, that being said, I think this year I've been pretty consistent. I do notice I'm working a little harder to get leads. I'm working a little harder and doing a little more reaching out to potential clients, advertising, etc., to get properties sold. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't mind working, but it definitely is not coming as easy as it did last year.
You know, we talked about at the sales meeting yesterday how when we had those crazy open houses, like it was impossible to build rapport and even structure your open houses because you were literally just like herding cats. And I think you can kind of look at just a real estate business similar to that, where when things were chaotic, it was hard to work on your business. It was hard to kind of nail down those systems and do things consistently, where now maybe we could take a step back, look at our individual businesses and do a little more on purpose and by design and create those systems.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, last year, especially at the beginning of the year, I had sales, but I don't think I made personal connections with any of the clients that I was working with. Whereas, now, I mean, one of my most recent closings, I was with her for, 9 months, and I've seen her several times since we closed, and she's, I'm half a mile away from me, and we talk all the time, and, it's a lot different than the clients that I serviced last year.
The funny thing is when you have a closing, I don't know if you do this, but I do this sometimes. I say, do I want to send them a request for a review? And some of them are no-brainers, absolutely. And there's others like, there's a couple of things that went on with the deal. It wasn't necessarily my fault, but I don't know. Do I want to send that request for that review?
Closing deals in the pandemic, whether it was state laws or just staying safe, we were far apart from each other, figuratively and literally, right? Like you were showing a house and you were 6 feet away from them. You were showing a house, you weren't even allowed in the house. You did it by phone, you did it by FaceTime, you did all your communication through some sort of electronic means. So it was hard to build that connection, and then that was it. We were just order takers for the last, for that 18-month period, where it was just like you almost didn't want to put out too many signs for the open house because you'd be putting them away, and people, it's 4 o'clock, you ended at 3. And they're still coming because they saw the sign. It's like, oh, I need a break. And we're going to get back more into a normal market. But for agents who are willing to put in the work that you mentioned, the normal market has more opportunity because there'll be a lot less agents. Most agents don't go out looking for business. They wait for it to call them. The last 2 years, it called them. Now they're going to have to go find it, and a lot of them aren't. So that's going to open up some opportunity for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm happier with the connections. Like I said, the last few closings that I've had, I've grown pretty close with my clients. There is a connection there, and it's very, very different than last year. But across the board, I would probably say there's only one, maybe two, that I question sending the review request.
It's never your fault. It's like I answered my phone every time. I did everything I was supposed to do. But, you were the buyer, and in a market where nobody cared about you, you had to say yes to everything. And, you're sometimes the face of that because the seller's down in Florida, whatever, they don't have to deal with it. You were the person they could still, see. And a lot of times that's more internal, don't you think, than they don't feel that way, but we're worried they feel that way, so you're not sure how to do. And I think that makes for a good agent when you internalize a lot of that of maybe, I know they're not happy. I wish I could have made the experience better, even though maybe you couldn't have. When you internalize that and say, I wish it could have been a little better for them, that means you're getting better and you probably did a good job for them.
Well, there's a lot of people in our industry that, there's a little issue going on with the deal. And instead of getting ahead of it and being transparent and being, communicating it with your client, a lot of people just dig their head in the sand. And then you have that period of time where you don't have any sort of communication. And that's where things, I think, could become difficult between the relationship between you and your client.
Yeah. I mean, they have to be educated, and there has to be somebody that's accountable for every issue that comes up. Whether it's myself that either made a mistake or needs to rectify something, or the other agent or finance, whoever it is. I think if you're completely, open and explain everything to your client, you should be good in the end.
So switching gears a little bit, about just preparation in our business. Something I've kind of witnessed with you, even though you have the home office and you don't come in all the time, it seems like you're more systematic than most agents. Is that kind of something even before you got in the business you were like that, or?
Yeah, definitely. I guess in some aspect, I've been in sales for a long time, and as much as I don't think I have a routine, I do have a routine. You know, the first, say, half hour out of my day, I'm reading. I'm reading the news. I'm reading my emails, drinking my coffee, kind of laying the ground for the rest of the day. And then, you know, I guess it does kind of change on a daily basis based on my appointments. But, you know, I'm reaching out to people at the beginning of the day. This way, if I don't get somebody, or if I have to call back, or if I have to leave a message, I have the entire day to either wait for it, to follow up, etc. If I'm making appointments, I try to make them, you know, earlier in the day, so I'm available in the afternoon for last minute appointments. You know, I try to make sure that I'm available for almost anything. You know, it's hard to plan that way, but
You do it often, because
yeah.
I've talked to you on a Wednesday or Thursday or even a Tuesday, and you say, I can't on Saturday at 10:30 because I already have appointments. So you definitely make those appointments early.
Yeah, I mean, listen. You're working with several other people's schedules. You know, you don't know that the agent that's showing is this their full-time gig? Are they only showing it on Saturday for 4 hours? Is the homeowner there, and you know there's no access to the property? There's so many things that go into it that sometimes you kind of have to just take whatever's out there.
That was another thing you really have to do, you know, during the pandemic, because if you had a buyer wanted to see houses, it was either only the open house or maybe one a week you could actually get into, so you didn't have to do much scheduling. I remember, and we're getting back to it, where you could show 8 houses on a Saturday to one buyer, get all those appointments, get them lined up in 20-minute intervals where I could just make all these as long as everything goes right. And you could make it happen and really cut the amount of time you're working with that buyer down. You know, when you're making those appointments, though, you got to do it ahead of time.
I think I'm going to create agents are lazy feature, because the last podcast I talked about agents are lazy, but we advocate showing before open houses as well, right? It takes some of the pressure away from the open houses. But it's amazing how many buyer's agents out there, they don't want to show it. So they call and say, I see you have the open house on Saturday or Sunday. Can I send my buyer? And you could say, well, we're allowing showings beforehand, and he or she might say, well, I'm not available during the week, but I'm just going to send my buyer on a Saturday, Sunday. They love the fact that there's no showings before open houses, because they can just send them over.
The pandemic was good for lazy agents. It's something we've been talking about. But if you were a lazy agent, just go to the open house. What's the matter? I'm not going to stand in line with you. And I didn't fault them for that. If you're only showing in an open house for 2 hours on a Saturday, you can't fault the buyer's agent if they can't get there or don't want to waste their time on a line.
And if a listing agent gets a courtesy call, there should be no issue with that.
Even if you don't, you're working for your seller. Is it annoying when somebody comes unaccompanied and then they get the deal? Yeah, it's a little annoying, but your seller's not annoyed. They're happy to get a deal that works. So
I love when they don't know their name of their agent. Yes, I'm working with an agent. And then they turn and say, honey, what was the name of that agent?
I don't know. I have to look at my phone.
I have the card somewhere, and there's like a waiting game, 5 minutes later. I don't know. I can't find it.
I have a deal right now going on Clay Lane in Levittown. Mm-hmm. Buyer's agent's been great to work with. Guy knows what he's doing, but he's from Queens. His buyer's from Queens. He's never seen the house, the buyer's agent. I'm waiting for the appraisal call any day, and I already know what's going to happen. Hey, since you're so close, would you mind covering the appraisal? And I'll probably say yes, because what's the difference if the guy goes there or not? But we'll see. Plus, I'm sure he doesn't have a Century app, so I'm not going to have to show up either way to open the door. But look, it happens sometimes. And I think this agent is just a functional location, which, doesn't make him a great buyer's agent probably for this buyer, but it worked out for the buyer. Buyer's happy, nice guy, nice family. And if it is because he's just lazy and just doesn't want to come, pandemic's been great for those guys. Everybody got used to having to do open houses and virtual and cover each other. So We're getting away from that pretty quick, though.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind doing the work. I think right now, the the biggest challenge is, if I have 6, showings that I'm trying to schedule in the same afternoon, trying to get them as organized as possible when the first 2 haven't responded to my request yet.
It's an art.
You know what I mean? In my mind, I know where I want to go and what order I want to do, but if I'm not getting the responses timely, it kind of jacks that up.
We always did 1-hour time frames. I want to show between 1 and 2, and you do like the first 3 between 1 and 2, and you set the next 3 for between 2 and 3, and you'd have those hour breaks. And then once you got them all confirmed, you looked, and if you could, hey, we're going to be more like between closer to 2 than 3, and maybe tighten up the time frames. It worked out pretty well to block them and make the appointment requests. And a day later, you had them all either confirmed or declined. But now a lot of the sellers are still pretty spoiled, and they don't want the hour time frame. Well, what time are you going to show? Well, I'm showing 3. I don't know. Well, we need a half hour. That's the most biggest window we'll give you. Or, well, what do you mean you're calling? Today's Wednesday. You can't set appointments for Saturday. Why not? It's too far away. No, it's not.
You're right.
It's a couple days.
We forget about that because prior to 2016, maybe 17, that was super common. Setting up 7, 8 houses and having those 1-hour windows for the buffer and you can't do that.
And nobody complained. Hey, I want to show your listing over on 123, Elm Street. Great. When? Sunday. What time? I don't know. All right, I'll tell the seller to just stay home all day and wait for you. That's fine. By the way, what kind of coffee do you buyers like? We'll have coffee ready for them. And that certainly wasn't the case over the last 18 months.
So where do you think this market's going to go? I mean, we've talked about this almost too much at this point, and there's lots of different arguments. But let's say short term, over the next 6 months, what do we see? What are you thinking?
I don't see much change. I don't really feel that. I mean, let's talk pricing specifically. I don't see much changing in that. The biggest thing that I see changing is the buyer aggressiveness. It's certainly they're not as aggressive as they were 6 months ago. The properties that I'm listing and even my buyers aren't throwing out well over asking money anymore. And it depends on the property. Some are semi over asking or at asking, but price property is selling at asking. I think the price reductions are partially due to sellers panicking. And they, again, over the last year or two, everybody got spoiled with houses selling in a weekend. And when a house just listed doesn't sell in a weekend, or let's say you do an open house this weekend and nobody shows up, they panic and, oh my God, we didn't sell this weekend, we're priced too high, let's drop it. And that's not necessarily the case. I'm sure it is in some situations, but I mean, take the Hicksville house, Fox Place. I thought I priced it pretty accurately, and I thought we would go a decent amount over asking, and it wasn't. And the offers were coming in extremely low, and I just didn't feel that we needed to reduce it, and the sellers were okay with waiting. They were okay with waiting 6 months, and I would never let them wait that long. But they were okay with waiting, and after I don't know, I think it was 3.5 weeks, we finally got to where they were okay with without reducing it. I mean, short term, the next 6 months, I think I think pricing especially is going to stay similar. The rates, I think, do have an effect on buyers. Certainly, some buyers have dropped out because they don't think that they can afford, or they don't want to spend, or they can't afford what they want. But I don't think it's had, especially, at least for the clients that I'm working with, it hasn't had that much of an effect.
No, I agree. I think we're going to have a lot more of the same.
I think rates will actually go down a little bit.
Yeah, so talk about rates a little bit. They went down, I mean,
Well, they went down about 0.5%, which really means now with a buy down, people are getting into the high fives, which is historically kind of a normal rate. But we're seeing that delta. Delta just is, if you imagine the end of a river, how it kind of spreads and gets wider, creates a triangle. So there's a spread between what the 10-year Treasury is trading at versus the mortgage rates. It's supposed to be 2%. That's what it always is. It's like 3 and change right now. Because if rates continue to go up,
so you're talking about the difference of the yield between the 10-year and
the yield,
mortgage.
the spread between what you could buy your Treasury bond at, and the federal government owes you the money, or loan it to a buyer on a home. So historically, that's a 2% difference. Not 2%, but there's a 2% spread. So if the Treasury is 2, the rate should be 4. Well, the Treasury is in the 3s right now, and the rates are 6.5. It's big. It's too big. But if you're a bank and you have $1 million to lend, do you want to lend it to somebody right now at 5.5 with the possibility rates are going to go up next month? No, you want to hold your money, wait till next month and loan it then. So the way they're hedging that is they're just adding a bigger spread between that Treasury rate and the mortgage rate. And we just had this, which is why the rates came down a little bit. As the market, the hedge funds, Wall Street believes inflation's under control and is less likely for rates to go up, they'll come back down to that traditional 2-point spread. But they're probably going to even get a little better, because if I have $1 million and I could lend it out today at 5.75, and I think rates are going to be 4.75 in a month, I'm going to want to lend my money today. So you're going to see them start to get more aggressive. Everybody's kind of in this holding pattern with rates to see what happens with the Fed. When are they going to be done? I think they're probably done. I think comes January, you might even see them start talking about everything's leveled off and we're in good shape. There might even be a rate decrease by Q2 and Q3, and that's when the mortgage banks will get real aggressive. So I've been telling my buyers, now's the time. Take advantage of the slow holiday season we're entering, the high rate environment. You could always, you date in the rate, marry in the house, so you could always refinance later. And if you're a 5% down person, a 10% down person, you need maybe some closing costs covered by the seller, or you're in a more competitive area, now's the time to go make your deal, because in spring of next year, I think things are going to be just as hot as they were last spring. And we're going to see. It doesn't matter what any of us think. How many times have you seen the crypto people kind of dumping on the real estate market over the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of these crypto NFT people talking about how that's the future, decentralized funds, and it's, real estate's going to crash. It's too expensive. Look at what rates are doing. And it hasn't crashed. I mean, we don't know what happens, but nothing's saying real estate's going to crash. But what did crash over the last couple of days? Crypto,
Yeah.
right? One of the biggest wallet hold. I don't understand crypto, which is why I'm not a fan of it. But we're seeing maybe that 2008 style collapse. It was going to hit something. In 2008, it wasn't Wall Street. Wall Street did pretty good once they got their bailouts. It was real estate. This time it looks like it's the crypto NFT thing, and it is kind of Ponzi-esque the way this is starting to crash. So every industry gets their turn. It's not going to be real estate this year.
You had a deal fall apart, right? Somebody had a lot of money in crypto. They were going to buy cash.
Yes.
And there was a little bit of a correction or something, and he wound up. Did he get his down payment back?
He didn't.
He
Didn't even want it. He happily walked away and gave it up. I've reached out and I haven't heard back from him. And my understanding is that that's where he made the bulk of his money, was in crypto and trading. And I guess he started losing, and that's history from there. His financial advisor, against my will, told him that now's not a good time.
His cousin told him it wasn't a good time.
Apparently, I
It wasn't
don't
his
know.
cousin. It was the guy who puts those signs up on the side of 110 saying, "Call me for crypto advice."
We saw that yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
There was a little plastic, corrugated plastic sign that says, you want to get into crypto and NFTs, call me with a 516 number. And I'm thinking, if I'm really going to get into this techie type, financial instrument, I'm not going to call a lawn sign on Route 110.
People do it for their houses all day long.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a whole different world. I posted this yesterday. I kind of take I said European immigrant, but I think it's all immigrant groups. When they come to America, it's kind of a distrust of all things financial. And if I can't see it, it probably doesn't exist. And that's as I get older, I'm more and more of that thinking and with that worldview. If you can see it, it's real. If you can't, you never wake up and your house is worth zero. You're never going to. In Hurricane Sandy, the day after, none of those houses were worth zero. They were worth less, but they weren't zero. And a whole bunch of people woke up this morning with crypto whose accounts now are zero. And real estate remains a great investment. I think right now it's the best time. If you're thinking about buying a second house, you could buy a second home, a second property with as little as 5% down right now to move it. For on a rock, 10% for second home, 20% down investor, maybe 15, but just use 5%. So buy the house down the street in the neighborhood you like, but 5% down. Rent out your other house, the new house, whatever. Check your lawyer for compliance. And you can get into a house right now for $30,000, rent out a house, have the tenant paying your mortgage, own a second home. Do you care between now and 30 years when you retire what the value changed plus or minus? No, you just care at the end. That's when it counts. Mm-hmm. And if you would have did that in 2008, today your house would be worth $200,000 more than the day before the big crash. So you still made $200,000 plus half your mortgage is paid off. You're halfway to a paid off mortgage. 30 years from today, that house you bought for $500,000 will be worth $1 million at least. And you didn't pay for it. You paid $30,000. The tenant paid for it. So, people are wondering what's a good investment right now. Has there ever really been a period of time with a long view, with a plan to buy and hold? Has there ever been a bad time for real estate? No.
No.
I'll answer my own question.
No.
You look in hindsight, and there's never a bad time.
How many times do you say to your grandparents, "Oh, you should have bought 10 houses"? Well, I could barely afford the one I bought. How was I supposed to buy 10? But some people's grandparents did, and now they own stadiums. They figured out a way to make it work, whether they lied or gave fake. Who knows how these old timers were doing it? But they made it happen. They made those properties theirs, and they kept them and they held them, and they were able to leverage that to something else.
If you're a home buyer, how do you get those deals? I'm a home buyer. I want to take advantage of the high 5, low 6 rates. Do I find a house that's been on the market a while? Do I find a house that's recently had a price improvement or decrease? How can I go get one of those deals?
Find a good agent. Absolutely, number one. I think a good agent, for a few reasons. A, they more than likely have some of those deals sitting on the back burner, either from a fellow agent or something that is coming soon to the market. A friend of theirs is thinking about selling or considering selling, any of those. They also are in touch with the finance guys. If you're financing, they'll put you in touch with somebody that best suits your situation.
How many times do you have a seller? Well, I probably would take this price, but I don't want to price it there. I want to leave it here. So you probably already have some insight. So if I'm an investor coming to Weicker Realtors and I say I want to buy a house, or maybe not even an investor, I'm a person who wants to buy a house and I have 5% down, I need a seller concession to pay all my closing costs. We know of a property right now in Farmingdale that would do that deal in a second, wouldn't they? So we know that kind of stuff going in as agents, what might be a good fit, not just as the house. The house is the house. I mean, it's got 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and it is what it is. It's pretty. That's the easy part. But how can we structure a deal that works for that buyer? And in these confusing markets where everything feels like it's changing, a good agent can structure that deal, and that's really what an agent does. We're not lockboxes with wheels, right? It's not that we just drive around and open houses. We can put the deals together and make them work. And when you put those deals together, sometimes you have some crazy stories happen, right? Have you had anything? I mean, the crypto one, is that your craziest story yet? That the guy just walked away from a very significant down payment?
I think it was almost $70,000. I think that's probably my top. I haven't had any strange or weird things happening.
You're like us. You don't remember him.
That's true.
Maybe I don't remember him. I mean, something weird and crazy was I was out in, I don't know, Coram or somewhere out on eastern Long Island, and I pull into this condo development, and surrounding my car was, I don't know, about 25 turkeys. And I mean, they were huge.
They weren't turduckens, right? They were turkeys.
And I was just about to get out, and I looked down, I'm like, and I see, 2 or 3 standing in the front of the car. I'm like, what's going on here? And I look up, and there's, maybe a 10-20 foot patch of grass in front of me, and there's more. And I'm looking around, like, they're literally everywhere, and they weren't there when I pulled up, or maybe I wasn't paying attention. I don't know. But
Was there a guy with a rifle in the tree? No?
Elmer Fudd running around.
No, it was just, it was weird and so random.
Turkeys, I remember, it's, I guess, the same story, that in Staten Island a couple years ago, there were people getting like accosted by the turkeys. The mailman wouldn't deliver mail on a certain street because the turkeys used to come and
Really?
mess with them. They like flapped their wings or something at you, I think. And
How about the bear sighting?
yeah, there was just a bear sighting in, where was that? It wasn't Medford.
Kurt the Bear?
Yeah, well, we have our mascot Kurt the Bear. I posted that did pretty well, the bear sighting in Farmingdale. But it was Islandia. No,
Yeah.
Bohemia. So I looked it up on a map, and so there was a Ring video somebody posted to the neighborhood app or whatever it is with Ring, and a bear walks over to a car and kind of looks inside and is sniffing around and then leaves. So I looked up the street it was on. It's in a pretty wooded area. I mean, there's a lot of woods across the street. So you're thinking, how did a bear get here? They thought maybe it escaped from the game farm. No, they have that bear. So I said maybe it swam over from Connecticut. I think Connecticut. I know Jersey has a lot of bears, but it would have been hard to get through Brooklyn.
I'm convinced the Long Island hunter brought home a few cubs and they grew up.
That's your theory. So the theory I was reading online was the videos from Jersey, and somebody just posted it as a goof in their local neighborhood app.
That's the best theory.
That's the real story. I mean, that's going to be the story. I'm sticking with there's bears on Long Island. I know we've had some coyotes here. There's wolves in upstate New York now. So what's old is new again.
Not bears.
That's another level. They're gonna have a field day in Long Island if there's bears with all the dumpsters behind our office. We're getting out of the real estate business, going into the bear side of the business. Jared, do you have any real crazy real estate stories you could think of?
No, to your point, I forget everything. But I do remember, post-housing recession or the Great Recession where the housing market crashed. We were HUD brokers, and we advertised a lot of HUD homes because that was kind of the way to get buyers to make phone calls. And every house we walked into, we were aware that they could be squatters inside. So it was very uncomfortable. We used to walk in with those heavy flashlights.
Big Maglite flashlights. My father bought us to do the showings.
And there was no electric, and a lot of times all the windows were boarded up. So you're literally walking in, unlocking a master lock with a chain around the door, a wooden board, and walking in and not sure. Every single one you walk past, every single room, every single closet, you're not sure someone's going to come running out. And that was just interesting. And everyone you went into was uncomfortable.
I had one of our agents called me, you got to get to this house quick. It was my listing, and I got there, and there was a squatter in a wheelchair. And we said, well, you got to go. He said, well, could you help me down the stairs? I can't do it myself. And I still don't know how he made it up the stairs, but him and probably a couple other people were living there for a little while. And
Kept coming back.
We had the house boarded up, and every couple days they were back in the house, and they didn't try living there. They would, just homeless people trying to stay warm. It was getting cold, and but we kept having to reboard the house up. It's like, this is crazy. None of the neighbors are calling the cops. They must be using power tools. And he was even in the shed for a while, and the owner basically said, well, I don't want to kick someone out of the shed. Let them live there. And next thing you know, there's, food in the house all over the place, beer bottles. We're like, oh boy. So I guess that's my craziest story. I know there's more. I usually steal that story another agent told me about walking into a house that he thought was haunted. So that's usually an interesting one, but it's not even my story because I can't remember.
I had a showing where I had to pick up a key at the office, and this was years ago in Massapequa. So I picked up the key. It was like Sunday at like 9 a.m. or something like that. It was all confirmed. So I walk in, we show the living room, then we show the kitchen, and then we walk into the bedroom. And this lady pops her head up, and you saw the fear of God in her eyes. And I put my hands up. I announced that I'm a realtor. I picked up a key from your listing agent's office, and I started walking backwards. And she's just yelling to get out, get out, get out. I'm like, would you like the key back? And she says, no, just get out. And I left, and thank God there was just a nice, scared lady and not some guy that I had a gun under his mattress.
Yeah, you wonder how they messed that up, the office, doing it that way. Every time I walk into a house with a key, a lockbox, vacant or not, first thing I do when I open the door is, hello, real estate. I say it 2 or 3 times nice and loud before I walk in, just so whoever, if there is someone there, I want them to know why I'm coming in the house, whether it's a squatter or a homeowner. What a crazy job. Chuck, have you had to break into a house yet, legally?
No.
Through the window, pry open a door. That's a rite of passage of being an agent. You get to a house and the lockbox, the key's missing, it's a vacant home, maybe you
check all the windows.
I guess we dealt with that more with the bank on the short sales, and sometimes the showing agents, if their buyer liked the house, they'd steal the key or they'd break it in the door. And
we had some of those bank-owned properties where we put deals on it, and we saw that the house wasn't in total disrepair. It might have been properly winterized, and we would get our own handyman in there, summarize the house, get all the utilities working so the buyer could get regular conventional financing.
I don't think we're supposed to admit that on a podcast, but we did a bunch of those.
I think that it's
The listing
past the
agents,
point of
we're
return.
past the what is that, statute of limitations. The listing agents, they knew what was going on. They were happy to have the sales too.
Yeah. So any last thoughts, Chuck?
I don't think
It
so.
could be about food. It could be about a restaurant.
So we like to end a lot of times. What's your favorite place what's the favorite thing you've done? Whether it's a great restaurant or some kind of experience on Long Island, what stands out over the last couple of weeks for you?
The last couple of weeks, nothing's coming to mind.
All right.
He had a lot in the beginning.
Yeah, you already talked about all this
Most of
food. I went to the wineries a couple weeks ago with some friends, and then afterwards we went to Caramia in Seaford.
Everybody tells me about Caramia.
So I know the owner. The food is just outstanding, and we got some sort of veal dish, and I was, like I said, we went to the wineries, so I don't even know what I was eating, but it was so damn good. And then a week later, I wound up going there, and I asked the owner, what was that veal dish we had? And he said, I think he had the
turducken.
the veal saltabaca.
Saltimbocca. With eggplant.
And it was just unbelievable. It's so good. So if you go there, get the chicken or veal saltabaca. Am I saying that right?
That's pretty close.
All right.
You could practice it later. Yeah, I don't order veal out often because it's always the smallest entree. You get like that little portion. I haven't eaten out in a long time. I've been, sticking to this diet. And
You went to Caramia.
I was just at. Let me go to Caramia.
Yeah, we not Caramia. Cara.
Cara, we went for lunch. I love that place. I like it for dinner a little better because they have this chicken rollatini, basically a rolled chicken in a tequila cream sauce with mushrooms, and it is the best. It's the best entree on Main Street in Farmingdale. Awesome. And I like that place. It's always a little quiet in there. Great guacamole. They do a table side, so you get like the chunky guacamole. Guacamole and agua. And they got a great tequila list and drinks and stuff. So Cara has been a pretty good stop for me. And go get, I think it's called the Pollo Renato or something. But go try the rolled chicken, whatever it's called.
We're gonna do a future podcast where we just grab a few menus, and we're gonna try to read all the stuff on the menu. We trying to order at Cara. I sounded like a 2-year-old.
We'll let Chuck. Let Chuck do the Villager pub or something.
No, I'll find a good French restaurant. You can read that menu.
Done.
All right. Well, I guess that's it.
Thanks for listening to Those Real Estate Brothers with Joseph and Jared. Subscribe now to get updates on future episodes, and please share it with others. Want to connect? Message us on Google, Facebook, Instagram, or text. We'll see you next time. And remember to always work hard and be nice.